Let's execute an immediate high-gear tactical vector shift away from sterile biochemical pathology labs, high-tech morgues, and metropolitan serial tracking lines, and plunge directly into the cold, calculation-heavy tracking grids of elite military rehabilitation sanctuaries, rugged mountain wilderness evasion, and the deeply protective world of small-town domestic psychological suspense. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored alpine valleys, heavily fortified rustic cabins, and lethal survival parameters of a high-altitude protective detail with Montana Storm, the exceptional pulse-pounding fifth structural deployment anchoring the globally dominant, chart-topping Resting Warrior Ranch series by the powerhouse co-authoring syndicate of elite romantic suspense fiction, Josie Jade and Janie Crouch. This high-stakes operational deployment delivers a thrilling look at an operational crossroad where a combat-wounded former Special Forces asset, an endangered woman running a blind evasion loop, and an absolute defense of a shared mountain perimeter collide at terminal velocity. Let's lay out the strategic narrative grid. If you are a fan of high-octane, slow-burn romantic thrillers where a battle-hardened, hyper-vigilant military veteran must navigate an absolute maze of external threat vectors, lethal wilderness terrain, and a deadly ring of protective personal boundaries while running a blind survival loop inside a compromised local ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep tactical mapping, defensive perimeter security, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an approaching hunting party, and where the authors utilize an incandescent shattered sanctuary unearthing a lethal historical threat diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural survival parameters, this book is engineered to lock you in. Jade and Crouch completely dominate the military romantic suspense dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating isolation paranoia, and heavy psychological depth popularized by genre vargs like Susan Stoker, Rebecca Zanetti, Laura Griffin, and Brittany Sahin, while treating small unit tactical defense, wilderness survival mechanics, and protective counter-surveillance tracked grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the rugged, isolated sanctuary of the Resting Warrior Ranch in Montana, a facility engineered for healing wounded veterans that is suddenly forced to operate under a severe, calculation-heavy handicap of active external tracking. When a highly resilient, deeply targeted woman flees into the severe alpine terrain to escape a lethal threat from her past, her vector intersects with a former special operator who has locked down his emotional parameters behind a layer of physical rehabilitation and self-imposed isolation. Behind the breathtaking mountainous vistas and rustic structural footprints lies an intricate matrix of hidden motion sensors, tactical communication arrays, and deep psychological defense grids. Their collective protective mechanisms are locked down tight behind a mutual refusal to show vulnerability, their entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden thermal and physical breaches of the valley, parsing complex tracking signs in the snow, and shielding her vulnerable trail from being entirely wiped out by an approaching cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches their active scanning perimeter. A massive, blinding mountain blizzard cuts off all standard communications and physical extraction vectors, just as a heavily armed tracking cell establishes a hard containment line around the ranch. The official diagnostic metrics of their survival grid flash white-hot, as the explosive, long-hidden files detailing the heroine's past reveal a toxic secret that threatens to permanently delete her from the network. An active siege sequence engages. The standard boundaries of a peaceful rural sanctuary crumble, and our protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape parameters. They are thrust directly into an active, invisible war against the elements and an oncoming assault force, where ruthless corporate or criminal field enforcers, highly trained tracking specialists, and calculation-heavy environmental hazards launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress the targets. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the majestic, unforgiving wilderness of the Montana mountains into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our veteran survivalist operators are forced to deploy their massive intuitive tradecraft, environmental mapping skills, and raw high-altitude combat stamina to maintain their perimeter before the hunting cell closes the trap. When deceptive local assets, corrupt law enforcement proxies, and calculation-heavy thermal tracking algorithms launch aggressive plays to delete her witness trail, their survival instincts engage their final deployment tracks. Every midnight patrol through freezing terrain, every silent choice to share deep-seated psychological trauma behind standard defensive walls, and every intense moment of channeling raw elite small unit tactics chips away at their reliance on original isolated rules. What follows is an exceptional high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the adversary's deceptive tracking perimeters completely unwrapped as Jade and Crouch reveal that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial assault or weathering a severe winter front. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of emotional truth, deep relational trust, and individual survival against a cold, calculating external machine. while our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force. A brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes environmental trials shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that historical emotional hazards have tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure their future, our resilient heroes must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of their final boundary lines. It is a military romantic suspense, wilderness survival action thriller, small-town crime drama, high-velocity mountain noir masterpiece that treats deep tactical logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one-snapped twig in a blizzard triggers a fatal firefighter energy, where a sudden pause inside a darkened cabin, an unexpected shift in an operator's protective physical posture during an active recon sweep, or a heavy possessive realization that a partner has completely breached your emotional vulnerabilities carries massive structural weight. Jade and Crouch write with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the cold, metallic snick of an ammunition magazine seeding into a rifle, the oppressive, heavy atmosphere of a mountain valley under a storm, and the distinct, subtle scent of pine needles, wood smoke, wet wool, gun oil, premium leather, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this fifth franchise installment into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance realistic military combat mechanics and genuine high-stakes wilderness tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace, deep emotional resonance, and profound healing arcs. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern criminal and environmental underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking romantic breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Montana Storm is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes military romance and dark wilderness suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unput-outable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating external monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the story.